about vaccines tonight. The first shipment arrives, but should you get it? You'll hear what the experts are saying. And a Lemonal land dispute, a small rural community versus mega developer Larry Flowers. They say he stole their village. He says they have it all wrong. And allegations of major money mismanagement at the Ho Chan Marine Reserve. Plus, Belize's GDP slides by 13% in the fourth quarter of a very bad economic year. We've got details of these and other stories in our newscast for tonight, Wednesday, February 24th, 2021. Good evening. With your news, I'm Indra Kram.
Start your year with a win with Bellikin and its new promotion, Papa Stopper. Yes, sir. Every time you pop one stopper off our Bellikin, make sure you check under the crown. If you see one bottle shape, you win one free Bellikin. If you see one ball, you win $20. If you see one star, you win $100. And once you see one diamond, you win $1,000. Sure, Bellikin again, you know. Papa Stopper. When you pop a stopper off a Bellikin, check to see if you're a winner. You can collect your free beer or $20 cash prize at the store nearest to you. If you win $100 or $1,000, redeem your prize at the nearest B&B sales center.
Promotion is valid until Saturday, March 27th or while supplies last.
Papa Stopper!
Bellikin, the beer of Belize.
On Wednesday, 3rd March 2021, voters of the 9 municipalities will have an opportunity to elect the members to constitute their councils. On your ballot, it is your decision and choice. Exercise it. Be assured that the COVID-19 protocols will be in place for your safe voting. Let your decision be your choice. Voters must properly wear their face mask or other face, nose, and mouth covering, maintain consistent 6 feet social distancing, and sanitize hands before entering the polling station. Having entered the polling station, the voter shows his voter identification card and announces his name in an audible voice. All voters will be required to temporarily remove their face mask or nose and mouth covering for the purpose of verifying the facial identity of the voter. The first poll clerk verifies the particular of the voter on the voters list, while the second poll clerk verifies the particulars in the binder. The voter's name is then ruled off the voters list. The voter is then required to show his right index finger to ensure that he has not yet voted. The voter's right index finger is then sanitized. Allow finger to dry for 5 seconds before dipping it up to the first joint in the indelible ink. The voter is then directed to the presiding officer, who then initials a ballot paper and issues it to the voter, along with a sanitized pencil. The voter then proceeds to the polling booth and marks a cross on the right-hand side of the ballot, opposite the name of the candidates of his choice. With the ballot paper folded to conceal the vote, the voter shows the presiding officer her initials, places the ballot paper inside the ballot box, and then places the pencil in the container for used pencil for resanitization. The voter then exits the polling station. Remember, you are permitted to vote in Belize City for 1 mayor and 10 councillors. In Belmopan City and Towns for 1 mayor and 6 councillors. Disabled, elderly, and pregnant women will be given priority. Electors are encouraged to take along their voter identification card to their polling station to facilitate the process. Your ballot paper will be considered void if it does not have the presiding officer's initials, if the voter has voted for more candidates than there are seats, if the ballot paper is not marked for any candidate, if the ballot paper contains any mark that can identify the voter, and if the ballot paper is unmarked or void for uncertainty. Let your decision be your choice. Always remember to follow all COVID-19 protocols to keep safe. A message brought to you by the Elections and Boundaries Department.
You've worked hard your whole life building your future, your family, your business, your home. And when you aren't around to safeguard your most beloved assets, you are at ease because you know they are protected by RF&G Insurance. For over 50 years, RF&G has been making sure business owners get back to work after an accident, and families get back into their homes quickly after a natural disaster. At RF&G, it's you who matters most. Visit us today and learn why it pays to get it right. RF&G Insurance, a Road Group company.
Electricity. We use it to power our appliances, charge our devices, and light our home. Let's all practice energy conservation at home and in the workplace. That's unplug chargers when not in use, lights off when not in the room, turn off fans and TVs. You can also look for Energy Star products and change lights to LEDs, which reduce energy cost. Let's all save energy.
Electricity is an essential part of our daily lives. We use lights and household appliances every day. Therefore, we must ensure our homes are wired properly. At Benny's, we have certified wires with the right gauges and insulation. BEL certified meter sockets, authentic GE and square D panel boxes and breakers, which protect your electrical system from being overloaded. When wiring your home, avoid imitation brands which can be very dangerous. Give yourself and your family peace of mind using genuine electrical products available at Benny's. Quality and savings.
Join us on Wednesday when our guest will be Kareem Musa, the Minister of Home Affairs. Will he legalize it and will he advertise it? And political analyst Damian Goff will tell you who's going to win next week's municipal elections.
At 7 this morning, the first 1,000 Oxford AstraZeneca vaccines landed in the tarmac of the Philip Golson International Airport. They arrived via Miami on an Amerijet cargo flight, a small but major donation from the people and government of Barbados. A sovereign event marked by a grateful acceptance and a spark of hope that will come with inculcating the first 500 of Belize's frontline healthcare workers. Minister of Health Michelle Shabat couldn't be present this morning as he was attending his father's funeral. But the former acting DHS, Melissa Diaz, was there to receive the cold packaged container. The Ministry of Health and Wellness sent out this pre-recorded message in which the minister made an ecstatic announcement of the arrival.
I am happy to announce today the arrival of this first amount of vaccines for our people. While it is a small amount of vaccines, it is a big step for us to confront and continue the fight against the COVID-19 pandemic. To this end, I wish to thank the government and people of Barbados for their kind and generous donation of these vaccinations. As we have committed, these vaccines will be distributed to our healthcare workers throughout our country. Vaccines save lives, and I believe in the COVID-19 vaccine. I will take the vaccine when it's my turn and urge you to take it too. When your turn comes, get vaccinated. Be COVID-19 safe.
And while Shabat urged Belizeans to take advantage of their turn at the vaccine, first in line are 500 healthcare workers, those who have and continue to fight on the front lines of the pandemic. This morning we heard from maternal and child health specialist Dr. Natalia Beer, who told us that this essential group selected from a priority list are those at work in the flu clinics and the COVID ICU.
We have a total of 5,000 healthcare workers, public and private sector, and we definitely will start with the first target group, which is the healthcare workers. We don't have enough for all, we know that, so we will start with those working in the COVID units and at the flu clinics. We are starting with 500 persons because 1,000 doses represent 500 persons receiving first and second dose, so we will start with the first 500, and that will start Monday next week.
And while some of us cheer on those first 500 recipients and patiently wait for our chance at COVID protection, many others remain unsure. And as vaccination becomes even a remote possibility, public opinion is the unknown variable. We asked Dr. Beer whether the ministry has polled any data on how Belizeans feel about getting the vaccine.
Well, we don't have any polling so far for the general population, but we already started the conversation at district level. The district teams are meeting with their stakeholders and getting the information out on the importance of the uptake of the COVID-19 vaccine.
But you said that you had polled healthcare workers. What was their response?
The healthcare workers, right now we are collecting information on their acceptance of the COVID-19 vaccine, which we expect will be high because they are the ones that are in contact with these patients with COVID-19, and they are the ones that are working the extra hours and going the extra mile to provide the regular services plus the services from the COVID units. So the report that I saw earlier with just a subsample of that showed that at least 53% of the healthcare workers are willing to accept the vaccine now. 35% still need a little bit more information, and 12% were saying no. Since then, we have enhanced the sensitization of our healthcare workers. They are vital. We need to protect them, and they need to protect themselves to protect the patients and their loved ones.
And if protecting loved ones is the goal, many will be distressed to find out that vaccine distribution is not yet approved for the very young. At this point, doses are only recommended to be administered to those 18 and older. That puts Belize, a country with a very young population, in an interesting dilemma. The vaccination of every resident 18 and older would only put us at a 58% herd immunity. Here's how Dr. Beer broke down this dilemma.
The vaccine, the AstraZeneca, is recommended for persons 18 years and older. And what does that represent from the total population? 58%. So we're hoping that throughout the coming months, we can have other options of vaccines that can cover lower age group. I know Pfizer start from 16, so we have 2 cohorts there that we can look at. But as we speak, the vaccines are being also, I won't say tested, but they are being tried in other population to see if they can include younger population. Until then, our target is 58%.
But while 58% is the current mark, in truth, Belize's natural immunity will exceed that percentage. That's because of the 12,271 Belizeans who have, to date, tested positive for the disease. Many of them will have a period of natural immunity. And this morning, we got an explanation from public health specialist Dr. Marcelo Coy of how that natural immunity helps us in the fight against COVID-19.
When we get that information, how will the numbers of people who have been infected, have been confirmed as positive, and even further on those asymptomatic ones, how do they contribute to herd immunity?
They do. But we don't know how long that immunity will last. So even though a person has had COVID-19 infection, clinically, they have it, or they are positive because of the antibody test, they are still required to do the vaccine when it becomes available, because we don't know how long it will last for. It may be for 3 months, 6 months, a year, but we do know that the antibody response to the vaccines are better and last longer.
And with all this talk of immunity, you might be wondering if a glimpse at pre-COVID normalcy is on the horizon. We put that question to Dr. Koi, but his response wasn't encouraging.
So in your opinion, what's the timeline that you see the world continuing to wear the mask?
Well, that vaccine, as you know, we have 6 to 7 billion people. It's a lot of vaccines to be produced, and until we get herd immunity for the world, it's at that point.
In what year?
I don't know. You tell me. I don't know, but I hazard it will be at least a year to 2 years before we reach there.
As you heard, we inch even closer to that maskless world with every single jab. And later on the news, we'll take more of an in-depth look at the expert arguments for vaccination and whether it's right for you and your family. We'll take a break now. When we come back, allegations of major money mismanagement at the Holchan Marine Reserve and the land dispute in Lemonal, where villagers say a mega developer stole their village land. You'll hear both sides. Don't go away.
Electricity is an essential part of our daily lives. We use lights and household appliances every day. Therefore, we must ensure our homes are wired properly. At Benny's, we have certified wires with the right gauges and insulation. BEL certified meter sockets, authentic GE and Square D panel boxes and breakers, which protect your electrical system from being overloaded. When wiring your home, avoid imitation brands which can be very dangerous. Give yourself and your family peace of mind using genuine electrical products available at Benny's. Quality and savings.
Start your year with a win with Bellikin and its new promotion, Papa Stopper. Yes, sir. Every time you pop one stopper off our Bellikin, make sure you check under the crown. If you see one bottle shape, you win one free Bellikin. If you see one ball, you win $20. If you see one star, you win $100. And once you see one diamond, you win $1,000. Sure, Bellikin again, Papa Stopper. When you pop a stopper off a Bellikin, check to see if you're a winner. You can collect your free beer or $20 cash prize at the store nearest to you. If you win $100 or $1,000, redeem your prize at the nearest B&B sales center.
Promotion is valid until Saturday, March 27th or while supplies last.
Papa Stopper!
Bellikin, the beer of Belize.
Masks protect us from the spread of germs which can make us sick. Make sure your mask covers both your mouth and nose. Remember, don't touch your mask with your hands when it is on your face. Let's all wear our mask properly to stay safe and healthy. Belize Electricity Limited. We care about your safety.
I was born in Belize City and I moved around a lot until I settled here in Belmopan. I'm technically a second-generation insurance agent. My grandmother was in the industry for over 40 years. I saw the love she had for what she did and the love she had for her customers. It wasn't just about providing a service, but it was about creating friendship. I am your neighbor, I am your friend. I am your RF&G agent.
Find your nearest RF&G agent on our website at rfginsurancepolice.com, where it pays to get it right.
Join us on Wednesday when our guest will be Kareem Musa, the Minister of Home Affairs. Will he legalize it and will he advertise it? And political analyst Damien Goff will tell you who's going to win next week's municipal elections.
Hey, Dad. Hey, Brian. Please stop running around the house. Right now, Dad. Damn it, Brian! I told you stop it! Can't you hear me? Are you deaf? Are you just being Time out. Your life is stressful, and it is easy to lose your patience. When you feel this is about to happen, take a time out. Harsh words are verbal violence and can be very harmful. They are not forgotten. Offering alternatives and communicating with your child is the best way to build real respect. I'm sorry, Brian. That just had a rough day at work. Can you do something quiet?
Do you want a job?
That's more like it.
The Ministry of the Blue Economy and Civil Aviation is reporting tonight that there is a major cause for concern at the Hull Chan Marine Reserve. An ongoing audit of the revenues generated by this protected area is indicating that almost $4 million were mismanaged and an additional $1.7 million may be lost as bad debt. Located just 4 miles south of San Pedro town, Hull Chan was established as the country's first marine protected area back in July of 1987. Today, it encompasses 102,400 acres of ecologically linked coral reef, seagrass meadows, and coastal mangrove swamp habitats. The sustainable management of this important protected area is supposed to be carried out by a board of trustees, which was established in 1994. A visitor fee generates revenues and to ensure that the reserve can pay for its own operational costs in the long term. A trust fund was set up to hold the money generated by those visitor fees. Upon taking office, Andre Paris, the new Minister of the Blue Economy, commissioned an audit to get a true picture of the reserve's finances. An audit team has since been reviewing, and according to Paris, They have found some worrisome financial irregularities, which he is describing as mismanagement by its former management team. And while the audit isn't finished, elections are coming, and he scheduled an impromptu press conference at the island office of the Hull Chan Marine Reserve. With the help of our colleagues from the San Pedro Sun newspaper, here are a few of the bullet points he made about the audit team's preliminary findings.
The Hull Chan Marine Reserve is currently debt-strapped with a $394,000 loan plus $115,000 in overdraft with the Belize Bank and $50,000 overdraft due to Atlantic Bank. The total debt exposure is $559,000 and income is below the $200,000 mark. According to the audit preliminary report, it is evident that the current financial situation could have been avoided if adequate cash management controls and procedures were in place pre-COVID-19. 3. There was no formal nor approval internal control policies and procedures that management was obliged to follow, which made the organization susceptible to fraud and significant financial loss over time. There were no adequate check and balance on the accountant, and there were no budgetary controls in place. Evident during the audit period were A. Return checks, stock receivables and other assets account left on the balance sheet without any support. This has led to the loss of $25,000, as these will have to be written off. B. There are large receivable balances of $79,000 that have not been pursued and potentially lead to write-off in bad debts. And C. In conducting assessment verification tests, the audit team has been unable to fully verify $854,000 worth of assets which the HCMR purchased over the previous 3 years. 4. There was evident abuse of management about the paying of rental expenses for the former executive director and other members of the management team when not authorized by contract or by board. The total of such expenses amounted to $40,050 over 3 years. 5. There was also apparent abuse of the staff loan privilege, where the auditors saw no system for approvals of loans to executive team and other staff members. As a result, there is a staff loan balance of $58,457 due from the former executive director alone at the end of March 2020. 6. During the review of 2017 to 2018, the auditors were able to detect a potential fraud in the amount of $636,843. Based on the preliminary audit work performed up to March 20 alone, the key areas of potential loss and cash flow mismanagement amounts to a grand total of $1,747,455 in potential loss and an estimated $4 million in potential mismanagement of the HCMR funds.
Paris says that as soon as the full audit is completed, he will report back to the Belizean public about what exactly was found and what the legal advisors are recommending as possible redress. This evening, we contacted the former executive director of the Hull Chan Marine Reserve for comment, and we asked specifically about the assertion from the minister that he owes just over $58,000 as part of a staff loan given to him. Up to news time, our calls and our messages to him remained unanswered. He's gone 105 days without an official press conference, and he may make it to 112. Prime Minister John Briceño won't be having his long-awaited press conference this week because he is participating in a two-day CARICOM Heads of Government meeting via Zoom. We are told he now plans to have that press conference next week, presumably after next week Wednesday's municipal elections. That's when his government also plans to start serious budgetary consultations with the labor unions to discuss the possibility of across-the-board pay cuts. Of course, that leaves very little time to prepare, debate and approve the new budget before the start of the new fiscal year on April 1st. So, best indications are that the budget may be presented at the end of March, debated in early April, and then go for Senate approval by mid-April. Unusual but not unprecedented. In 2008, the new Barrow administration took until summer to present its first budget. If you're used to premium or diesel fuel, you might want to try and make a run to your nearest gas station right now before curfew closing to fill up. That's because the price of gas is going up sharply at midnight. Premium gasoline will increase by 51 cents from $9.89 to $10.40 per gallon. Kerosene will increase by 29 cents from $6.46 to $6.75 per gallon. And diesel will increase by 42 cents from $9.20 to $9.62 per gallon. Only regular gas will remain stable for the time being at $9.81 per gallon. And while it may seem exorbitant, fuel prices trend higher at this time of year. And 1 year ago at this time, it was $10.99 per gallon for premium, $9.73 for regular, and $9.84 for diesel, which are just about the same as this year. And on to crime news. A man may have escaped a hit that someone put out on him. Last night at around 8:40, 64-year-old Roy Anthony Jervis was sitting in his friend's yard on Paris Road in Ladyville when he was approached by two men with firearms. One of the men pointed the gun behind Jervis's head and told him that he was sent to kill him but will only rob him instead. The gunman then took Jervis's licensed .380 pistol along with his cell phone and his wallet containing $4,000. The robbers then fled the scene and police are now investigating. In the first segment, we told you all about vaccines, but the big personal question for most of us is, should I get it? The experts are saying yes in across-the-board endorsements from the necessity and efficacy of the vaccine. Tonight, we take a deeper look at the challenges of acquisition in what may be the greatest logistical feat in memory. Efficacy.
There have been 314 COVID-19 deaths since the virus reached Belizean shores last March. It's a small number in comparison to the death tolls of other countries in the region. But for a tiny country like ours, it remains quite a stark figure. It's a situation that can only be combated once we reach community or herd immunity, a mark that, if achieved naturally, is projected to cause as many as 7,000 COVID-19 deaths. That's where vaccines come in. But is the vaccine safe for you and your family? And if you do decide to get it, should you have a preference for a specific vaccine?
Vaccines are safe, are relatively safe, okay? Everything has its potential risk. Something as simple as Tylenol, oxygen could hurt you, okay, believe it or not. So there are some adverse reactions to vaccines. But all in all, it's safe, it's effective, and I would encourage, plead, tell every Belizean to seek their vaccinations when the time comes. I want to vaccinate myself, for sure. I'll be the first one I stand up in the line. Be it AstraZeneca, be it the Sputnik 5.
And while Cuellar is ready for even the Russian jab, that's a vaccine that's not yet approved. But that shouldn't stop our efforts to try and secure it. And this morning, public health specialist Dr. Marcelo Coy told us why that is.
We have enough vaccines for 30% of the population, but there's another 30%, 40% that we need to get vaccines. Mm-hmm. So it is incumbent upon the government to go and search for that other vaccine that we need in a concurrent way while approval is being gotten. You can't say, well, we'll look for a vaccine until it's been approved, because then you're down the line if you're going to go sequentially. So you have to search for all these vaccines, right? And then when it is approved, then obviously we're going to use it. So I quite agree that we must look forward and try to get as much available vaccine as is possible, but only will be given when they are approved by the strict regulatory bodies.
And in the race to secure these life-saving vaccines, countries like ours are at quite a disadvantage, leaving over 30 to 42% of our population unprotected and at risk.
I think the evidence is clear that we are dealing with a disease that is causing severe illness, hospitalizations and deaths. And if this disease could be prevented with a vaccine, well, that is the best option for any person. Governments around the world has decided that it's best to fight the pandemic by herd immunity through vaccination and not waiting until 70% or 85% of the population is ill, risking these persons to die unnecessarily from a disease that could be prevented with a vaccine.
And we're asking persons out there that once the vaccines have arrived in Belize and it's time for them to receive the vaccines, to take on that opportunity to go in and get vaccinated, because this is one of the ways that we can help our economy to return as quickly as possible. And we're going to do mass education with regards to the vaccines once they're in country, and we're also going to educate the public with regards to where to go, how to get the vaccines as quickly as possible. So we're asking the general public for cooperation with that.
That education campaign starts now, but really ramps up on Monday with the rollout of the first 1,000 doses. 100,000 total doses are expected, and when they do get here, it will be up to you to make an informed decision about whether or not to listen to the experts and to the science.
What the world is saying is that we only can be safe if all of us are safe. But what they are certain of with all the vaccines, COVID-19 vaccines, is that it reduces the severe illness, hospitalization, and death. So it is COVID-19 vaccine save lives, and that is the objective.
Cherise Halsell, 7 News.
The experts also remind us that post-vaccination mask wearing, physical distancing, wiping down surfaces and hand washing will still play a big role in reducing the number of COVID cases and their resulting deaths. This morning, the Statistical Institute of Belize hosted a virtual press conference to discuss their preliminary reports on several economic indicators. Those figures include a look at the country's gross domestic product for the last quarter of 2020, last year's external trade, and the import and export figures for the first month of 2021. We start first with the SIB's examination of gross domestic product for the fourth quarter of 2020. It continued to slide, pulled down by the weight of the devastating COVID-19 pandemic.
For the fourth quarter months of October to December 2020, Belize produced goods and services totaling $592.6 million. This represents a decrease of $89.6 million, or 13.1%, when compared to the fourth quarter of 2019. Preliminary annual estimates for the year 2020 indicate that goods and services produced totaled $2,475.1 million. This represents a decrease of 14% from $2,880.9 million produced in 2019. If we take a closer look at the annual GDP from 2015 to 2020, we observe a sharp decline in overall output in the year 2020, reflecting the severe economic effects of COVID-19. Now, if we assess what each sector contributes to the overall GDP, the sector whose movements make the most impact is the tertiary sector. Declines in contributions of the tertiary sector to the overall GDP are clearly observed over the past year. Now, looking at what each sector contributed in the fourth quarter of 2020 alone, the sector with the largest contribution was again the tertiary sector, which accounted for 61.4% of production. The secondary sector accounted for 15.9%, the primary sector 9.2%, and the remaining 13.6% was in taxes. Looking specifically at the fourth quarter GDP at constant prices over a 7-year period, the graph highlights fluctuations in the GDP from 2015 to 2019, followed by a significant 13.1% decline in production in the year 2020. During this period, production within the tertiary sector declined, overshadowing increased production in both the primary and the secondary sectors. Despite the opening of the international airport in October, activities within the hotels and restaurants subsector remained virtually non-existent compared to previous years. Cruise ship calls have not commenced since March of 2020, while overnight tourist arrivals have declined by 85.6%, from approximately 120,000 visitors in quarter 4 of 2019 to 17,000 in 2020. And just to recap, for the fourth quarter of 2020, GDP decreased by 13.1% compared to the same period of 2019. Production across the primary sector increased by 0.6%, the secondary sector grew by 22.5%, and while the tertiary sector decreased by 18.8%.
Another major topic coming out of today's press conference was a deep dive into the country's external trade. In her presentation, statistician Tiffany Vasquez took a brief look at how the country's imports and exports underperformed last year. Here's her summary.
Total imports for the year 2020 amounted to $1.6 billion. Imports dropped substantially by 20.2%, or almost $398 million when compared to the year 2019. The categories of mineral fuels and lubricants and commercial free zones declined significantly, falling by 46% and 34% respectively. Other commodity categories also decreased notably, with both machinery and transport equipment and other manufacturers each falling by 20% in the year. Likewise, imports of treated pine lumber and used clothing were considerably smaller in 2020, resulting in a 43% drop in the crude materials category. There were also increases observed in the year, particularly in the categories of beverages and tobacco and chemical products, where the increase in the latter was driven mostly by heightened imports of disinfectants, insecticides, and diagnostic testing kits. Now for domestic exports. Merchandise export earnings for the year 2020 totaled $367.8 million. This was a decrease of 11.1%, or a drop of $46.1 million when compared to exports of 2019. Of Belize's 5 major exports, bananas alone saw increased earnings for the year, growing by 10%, or almost $8 million in the year 2020.
From there, she gave an analysis of the country's exports for the first month of the new year. According to the SIB, imports are down by 18%. Here's more from Vasquez.
In January of this year, Belize imported goods valuing $131.9 million. This represented a considerable 18% decrease, amounting to a drop of almost $29 million when compared to imports of January of 2020. The categories of mineral fuels and lubricants, machinery and transport equipment, and commercial free zones declined markedly during the month. Expenditures on mineral fuels and lubricants dropped by almost 50%, falling from $22.2 million to $11.6 million. A downturn which was prompted by smaller imports of fuel being purchased at reduced world market prices. Importation of machinery and transport equipment, such as aviation equipment, pumps, and vehicles, dropped by 1/4, or $9.8 million to $28.3 million. Goods meant for the commercial free zones likewise declined by approximately 1/4, down by $6.5 million to $20.4 million, with decreased imports such as clothing and handbags. A couple other categories also saw noteworthy decreases during the month. Imports of manufactured goods and other manufacturers together went down by $5.1 million to almost $29 million. That's a combined 28% decrease, owing to fewer purchases of metal structures, galvanized steel coils, and gold jewelry.
And according to the SIB, domestic exports were up by a marginal 1.1%. Here's what the experts had to say about January 2021's earnings.
Export earnings for January of this year remained virtually unchanged when compared to exports of January of last year, as total domestic exports amounted to $16.2 million, up a negligible 1.1% or $0.2 million when compared to exports of January 2020. Sugar followed a similar trend, having had no discernible change in export earnings, as sales of this product amounted to $1.3 million in January of this year, an amount equaling sugar earnings from January of last year. What is interesting here to note, however, is that this was despite a relatively notable decrease in exported quantities of sugar, indicating strong world market prices for this commodity at the start of this year. In contrast, animal feed provided the only distinct increase in the month, with earnings from this product growing sharply from a mere $0.4 million to $2 million. Earnings from the country's remaining major exports, on the other hand, all declined during the month, with exports of marine products seeing the most pronounced decrease at $1.7 million, falling from $4.3 million to $2.7 million, owing largely to a drop of exports of lobster tails. Revenues from citrus products went down slightly by $0.5 million to $1.9 million, due mainly to reduced exports of orange concentrate, while earnings from bananas also declined marginally, down from $5.7 million to $5.5 million.
Well, a look at the Consumer Price Index for last month in tomorrow's newscast. And we'll take a break now. When we come back, we'll hear both sides of that land dispute in Lemonal. Don't go away.
Electricity is an essential part of our daily lives. We use lights and household appliances every day. Therefore, we must ensure our homes are wired properly. At Benny's, we have certified wires with the right gauges and insulation. BEL certified meter sockets, authentic GE and Square D panel boxes and breakers, which protect your electrical system from being overloaded. When wiring your home, avoid imitation brands which can be very dangerous. Give yourself and your family peace of mind using genuine electrical products available at Benny's. Quality and savings.
Start your year with a win with Bellikin and its new promotion, Papa Stopper. Yes, sir. Every time you pop one stopper off our Bellikin, make sure you check under the crown. If you see one battleship, you win one free Bellikin. If you see one ball, you win $20. If you see one star, you win $100. And once you see one diamond, you win $1,000. Sure, Bellikin again, you know. Papa Stopper. When you pop a stopper off a Bellikin, check to see if you're a winner. You can collect your free beer or $20 cash prize at the store nearest to you. If you win $100 or $1,000, redeem your prize at the nearest B&B sales center.
Promotion is valid until Saturday, March 27th or while supplies last.
Papa Stopper!
Bellikin, the beer of Belize.
Electricity. We use it to power our appliances, charge our devices, and light our home. Let's all practice energy conservation at home and in the workplace. That's unplug chargers when not in use, lights off when not in the room, turn off fans and TVs. You can also look for Energy Star products and change lights to LEDs, which reduce energy cost. Let's all save energy.
Join us on Wednesday when our guest will be Kareem Musa, the Minister of Home Affairs. Will he legalize it and will he advertise it? And political analyst Damien Goff will tell you who's going to win next week's municipal elections.
Sa Albert Interlube.
Ingita nomada na bastante golida ligabri asa talida la escuela abro hatia afia na lo ni la mege do.
Time out. Weri hali anigi bele habusa rogrigia wena mohaya hagamro duniwa irahia. Baro bada ayano haba hama bisanigu. Demele badugunile bide haba lida leredroniwa hagamredoniwa irahim.
Ishkanap ang kilep akok alchihink achap il belep apan na tiemang mukuna karahepta ot mukush nashiktaj ol chirishep mukukamaanta narah tento naktak amch olanehem tarahem akok al utak ak alahem renak ustek ik hakok al nekek ichicha bilshtu amem natyop amang sol alep rukin haus sa ishkok alilem cha il belep chak sa besim bilem cha bil kwentinim bilep ut chikamaan sahep sish olep kaweb ut neke eshnau harahok eshna eshtuka tek qui etiem preheb ekok al shpanak tento te rilera hom chiho kantek ik shpanu kila ussa ishtu amem shpanak shetsolep chi ussa ishkok alilem
Earlier we told you how the deep blues of the Ho Chan Marine Reserve were running in the red. Well, our next story takes you to the green grasses of Lemonal, where villagers say that the only green one developer wants to see is the color of money. Residents feel they have the right to expand their village to the surrounding area, and it may have been possible if the government actually owned the land. But as it turns out, the land is private property, and the new owner has the documents to prove it. It's a back and forth where both parties feel entitled to the 7,000 acres of land immediately adjoining the village. Courtney Menzies took a closer look and brought you the details to see for yourself.
The villagers of Lemonal usually enjoy a quiet, rural life surrounded by greenery and farm animals. But now, they feel their way of life is being threatened after developers bought 7,000 acres of land adjoining the village. According to them, it's an issue they've been facing since 2007, when the then PUP government promised them leases that they were never able to use.
I was invited in 2007, among many other villagers, to a meeting that was supposed to be held here in Lemonal. I was told that the lands minister will be here to issue land all over again. Because I said all over because many people were already in possession of land documents. But apparently those documents were not genuine because the government had then informed the community that the land was privately owned and that the government would be acquiring back the community that we live on and portions outside of the community, meaning the peripheral areas where we could use for village expansion and farms. They came here in our community and they issued lease left, right, and center. Even though they were signed and sealed by the minister, they were not honored by the government of Belize as legitimate certificates. What a shame.
They learned that the land they were residing on, as well as the thousands of acres surrounding it, was not government property, but instead it was owned by a foreigner. They had hoped that the government would be able to acquire the land and allow them to expand their village. But a decade later, they noticed that developers had started to clear the land immediately outside the village.
Fast forward to 2019, villagers became alarmed when in early 2019, heavy equipment started to move in the village and massive excavations started to happen, literally in our backyards, ripping apart lands that holds not only our animals, but the very livelihood of our families. So on behalf of many concerned villagers, after I learned that 7,000 acres of land, including our community, were being claimed by a private investor, upon receiving this information, we took the following actions. The first step, on April 12th, a formal letter of request was made to the then village chairman, to the area representative of Belize Rural North, to the lands minister, to the commissioner of lands, and copied to all villagers. In that communication, some of the following major concerns were highlighted.
In that letter, they asked the recipients to see to it that the ownership of the land would be carried over for village expansion and would not be given or sold to any entity, whether private, public, or business. The letter went unanswered, which prompted Anna Banner Guy to create a petition, which was then sent along with a letter to the then Minister of Natural Resources. She also wrote to the Mining Department and the Department of Environment, but she hit dead ends every time. But while those correspondences went mostly unanswered, the shareholder of the company who, at the time, was purchasing the land, Larry Flowers, approached Guy.
I was asked by Mr. Flowers that I was told that he has ownership to the land. I asked for documentation. He could not present it at the time. And he asked if we're interested in getting any amount of this land or land in this area, that we would have to write a letter to his company. It is not out of pride that I cannot even tolerate that we cannot tolerate that request, but it is out of principle.
But the reason Flowers could not produce land documents was because the private owner, Joseph Watson, had died, and it was a lengthy process to acquire the land. But that process has come to an end, and the land officially belongs to Flowers' company, named Rodla. But despite what the villagers believe, this land does not include the 500 acres that make up Lemonal. Flowers clarified that, as shown on this plan, the village's lines are marked off, and his property consists of the two blocks, 281 and 285, outside the village. He told us this information off camera.
In 1972, to my knowledge, Joseph Harold Watson had bought that land, and recently, since 2015, we have been in discussing the possibilities purchasing of the land, and that transaction has concluded. And I don't know what or why they are questioning the scenario. I don't. It's a private transaction.
So the land in question is, I believe, 7,000 acres, but their 500-acre village also sits inside that land.
To my knowledge, Joseph Harold Watson had owned over 8,000 acres of land. In 2002, the Honorable Maxwell Samuel, through his association with Mr. Watson, granted the village of Limonal 500 acres. The remaining portion was sold to me just recently. So this was a private land owned by a private individual for many years. The question is, now that I buy it, what is the problem?
This transaction is complete.
It is complete. There is a grant of administration because Mr. Watson has passed 228 of 2020 in the Supreme Court of Belize.
So while the residents were hoping to expand their village, Flowers indicated that they would need to purchase the land back from him, since he is now the rightful owner. He noted as well that he has to fence his property due to the invasion of the villagers' cattle. Courtney Menzies, 7 News.
Rodla has a case presently in court against one of the residents, which the company claims is using his lands. Due to political wrangling, it took some time for them to get into position, but they have. And today, 1 week before a municipal election, the new members of the Elections and Boundaries Commission were sworn in. It happened in Velmopan at the Belize House, where Governor Sir Colville Young sworn in a new chairman, Oscar Sabida Puga, along with PUP selected members Orlando Espat and Conrad Lewis, and UDP selected members Philippa Griffith Bailey and Alberto August. I forget the man general. Keeping it on the elections, the UDP's slate for the municipals is hoping to pull off a greater upset than the PUP did in 2018. That's when the PUP took back City Hall after 12 years of UDP control. This year's red slate, led by journalist Orson Picard, is hoping to make the Blues run in City Hall very brief. The party did a virtual launch of its manifesto today, where Picard said, "You're the boss."
My team and I, the UDP 11, intend to rebuild our city through a series of social and infrastructural programs and initiatives which will reinstill our city pride and allow for residents to provide for self and for family. You are the bosses, and this manifesto is our application for the job at City Hall. Belize City's greatness will blossom from communities joining together to make progress.
Conventional dictates that women and children go first, and ahead of them both pregnant women. It's how we're accustomed to boarding transportation and escaping tragedy. But in the upside-down world of COVID-19, the safety of a vaccine is only warily prescribed for pregnant women, and then only in certain circumstances. Public health specialist Dr. Marcelo Coy is known primarily as a gynecologist and obstetrician. And this morning we asked him why pregnant women won't be first in line for the vaccine.
Well, the trials that were done in all the vaccines so far have not included pregnant women. So it's not licensed for its use. But I can tell you that in the Royal College of in England, where I got one of my postgraduate degrees, their recommendation is that women with high-risk problems, with what you call comorbidities, who have other problems, that after discussion with them and assessing the risk and the benefit, that they can get the vaccines, but it must be by consent, after discussing the risks with them, because if they do get COVID-19, they get more complications. So yes, it is for limited use.
But until those vaccines are distributed, citizens need to continue to do their part to keep numbers low and Low they have been. For the past 6 days, there have been no COVID deaths. That was disrupted today, however, by a single new death, that of a woman in Cayo. Additionally, there are only 7 new cases and 17 new recoveries. Information Officer at the Ministry of Health and Wellness, Audit Morales, has the numbers.
A total of 670 samples were tested. Out of this, 7 samples have resulted positive for COVID-19. There are 17 new recoveries to report. Today, we also report that 7 infected persons are hospitalized. Unfortunately, 2 of these individuals are being treated at the intensive care unit. There is 1 new death to report. The cumulative report we are presenting is from March 2020, when we had our first case. The new total of active cases now stands at 140. These are those persons who have been confirmed and are within the time frame to transmit the virus. To date, 82,944 samples have been tested nationally. Out of this, 12,271 samples have resulted positive for COVID-19. There are 111 individuals newly under investigation. A total of 315 deaths have been reported, but we are pleased to report that there are 11,816 total recoveries. The heat map shows the districts mostly affected. The greatest number of cases are seen in Belize and Stan Creek districts. Belize district reported 3 new cases, with San Pedro Town responsible for 2 cases. Stan Creek district reported 2 new cases, with Dangriga and Independence responsible for 1 case each. Orange Walk and Corozal districts each reported 1 new case.
And while the UDP says voters are bosses, many in the public are asking if BTB workers are frontliners. It's caused a bit of an uproar, with the public asking why a BTB IT man, for example, is more essential than anyone else. We put the question to Dr. Natalia Baer this morning, and she confirmed that BTB workers are indeed included in the priority list group number 3.
We use the recommendations from the global experts. We use the data that we have locally, and the grouping, the phase for the different groups that we will be vaccinating is based on local data and international recommendation. Priority is given to those persons who have higher risk of coming in contact with a large number of persons that could be or could not be infected. But because of the type of work that they do, then they have higher risk. So in regards to the tourism sector, I think they're in group 3, if I'm not mistaken, group 3. We have 5 groups. And we know we rely heavily on tourism, and we have difficulties with our economy, and they come in contact with a lot of persons, so they are part of the 3rd group.
Tonight, the Public Service Union is giving the Briceño government a thumbs up for keeping its manifesto promise of implementing good governance reforms. They note that the government has increased the membership of the Public Accounts Committee to include the social partners. A press release from the union says, quote, PSU welcomes the expanded PAC and rallies for the inclusion of the union's senators to the PAC so that the PSU can actively support the union's senators in the performance of her role in the PAC. It is our hope that the government will also move to ensure that more highly trained and qualified human resources are added to the staff in the Accountant General and Auditor General departments to ensure that more timely and comprehensive reports can be prepared and tabled in Parliament, end quote. The union notes that both they and the Ministry of Public Service, Constitutional and Political Reform have signed a memorandum of understanding for a good governance curriculum. The union is also applauding the Love Foundation for ensuring that the training is offered to public officers. This good governance curriculum will now be included as part of the education of public officers. And that's all we have for you for tonight. Thanks for watching. With your news, I'm Indira Craig. Remember that you can read a full transcript of the news at 7newsbelize.com and see our streaming video of this newscast on our Facebook page. Remember now to wash your hands, to wear masks at all times in public, and to keep your social distance. The curfew starts at 10 tonight, so please stay inside. Join me back here tomorrow at 6, and until then, have a great night. Reminding you that tonight you can catch us on Uncut at 8. Have a good night.